So, continuing into part 2 of the battle report, this is the board at the start of Skaven turn 3. He's going to charge my Hydra in the flank with his remaining unit of Skaven slaves on his left, and his gutter runners are going to come in. They're not going to charge anything, but they're going to get ready to shoot into combat. And the real decisive thing in this turn, this is probably going to be what decides the game, is that he, because of my knights and my corsairs threatening his flank, he's going to turn his plague furnace to face my knights. So in his magic, the only spell he's going to get off is a Vermintide. It hits my knights and my Dark Riders. Doesn't do anything to the knights, but it is going to kill my entire unit of Dark Riders there. And then in his shooting phase, he's going to kill a couple Dark Riders with his Gutter Runners, but more importantly, he's going to hit my knights with the sort of breath weapon attack from the Plague Furnace, and that'll kill 2 of them. Then in close combat, his Skaven slaves are going to kill all but one of my Dark Riders up here, but the Dark Rider will hold. And this big combat with his Storm Vermin and his Skaven slaves against my Hydra, he's going to fail to do anything to the Hydra, then the Hydra will do something ridiculous, like 10 wounds to the Storm Vermin. And he loses by a bit. He's steadfast, but even with steadfast and rerolls, the Skaven slaves run away while the Storm Vermin hold. So that brings us to Dark Elf turn 3. I'm going to declare charges with both of my Cold One Knight units, one against his monks with the Plague Furnace, the other against his Storm Vermin. They'll both pass their stupidity checks and make the charges. And the one against the Plague Monks is going to get the +1 attack bonus from the Cauldron of Blood. Then in the rest of my movement, basically, I'm going to move my Corsairs up so that they'll be able to take a shot at the Plague Monks after the Cold Ones die, which I expect they will do fairly quickly. But the big thing is that now that the Plague Monks have turned to fight my Cold Ones, they're not contesting the rulebook. So my unengaged block of warriors is going to start dragging the rulebook back into my deployment zone. And I mean, at this point, the way the victory conditions work out, I just don't see how he's going to get a unit in position to actually stop me from moving that every remaining turn of the game, even if he beats me pretty decisively in all of the combats that we have left. So in combat, let's see. We'll start with the Hydra and the Cold Knights against the Storm Vermin. Now, my opponent, for whatever reason, he didn't take advantage of the make way rules. So only his assassin and regular troopers had been in contact with the Hydra in previous rounds, but so many of them are dead now that this time he got his Battle Standard Bearer and his Warlord fighting the Hydra. And so even though I debuffed them in the magic phase so that the Storm Vermin are fighting at -1 strength and the Plague Monks are fighting at -2 toughness, the Storm Vermin managed, and well, basically the 3 characters and 1 Storm Vermin that live after my Cold Knights hit managed to kill the Hydra. And they lose combat but hold. Then with the other Cold Knights against the Plague Monks, I direct all my attacks against the furnace itself, and I destroy the furnace. And probably 1 or 2 other Plague Monks, but then there's just a colossal amount of attacks back, and even with 2+ armor, all but one of the Knights die. However, the Knights do stay put, so this is the board at the start of Skaven turn 4. His movement phase isn't very eventful because he just doesn't have much left. His Gutter Runners basically stay in place at that far corner to finish off my Dark Riders. And his only other units are his Plague Monks and then the remains of his Storm Vermin, which are both locked in combat. So he doesn't really accomplish anything in his magic phase. So I guess that brings us to close combat. He is going to finish off my Dark Riders up in the corner. His Plague Monks are going to kill my champion, but I attack first, and he's still going to have negative modifiers to his toughness, so my champion attacking first is actually able to kill his Plague Priest before the unit gets wiped out. And then his Storm Vermin, the way the challenges worked out, basically not a lot happens, only 2 Cold One Knights are killed, they don't really do much in return, and the Cold One Knights are going to lose and break, but they do get away. Then his Plague Monks are going to reform just to avoid getting flanked by my Corsairs, and that'll be it for his turn. So there's not a lot left on the board that's really capable of moving now. So my movement phase isn't that eventful. Basically, my Corsairs will charge his Plague Monks, not really expecting to beat them, but I should be able to fight them, kill several, and keep them occupied so that they don't contest the rulebook. And the rest of my movement it was just going to consist of dragging the rulebook back and setting up my units to shoot at those, well, his Storm Vermin champion and 3 characters that are forming his 4-man unit behind my Cold One Knights there. So in my magic phase, I successfully cast the Mystifying Miasma, the Enfeebling Foe, and the Withering on his Plague Monks, but he dispels the Withering. So the Plague Monks lose a point of initiative and a point of weapon skill and drop to a strength 1, but are still toughness 4. I also cast Pit of Shades on his Clan Rat unit, and that kills his Chieftain, but doesn't do anything to the other 3. But the other 3 are stuck in front of my crossbow unit and my level 4 mage that has a life taker. So the ensuing barrage kills his battle standard bearer and the Storm Vermin champion. So now it's just the assassin on his own. Then in close combat, we've got my Corsairs against his Plague Monks. I'm going to kill, I think, something like 8 or 9 of them. They kill 2 Corsairs in return. The Plague Monks hold, and that's on to Skaven turn 5. So this is the board at the start of his turn. I mean, it's really a foregone conclusion at this point because he just doesn't have anything that can get to the rulebook. But even so, he's going to charge my Cold One Knights with his assassin, and he's going to attempt a fast reform on his Skaven slaves way up in the corner, but they'll fail. Then he doesn't have any magic or shooting, so on to close combat. His assassin's going to kill 2 knights and not take any damage in return, but the knights hold. And then in close combat, the Plague Monks are going to kill 1 Corsair, but the Corsairs are going to kill 5 monks first. And he's only got 2 ranks, so he's Stubborn Leadership 8, but he fails his check. So the Plague Monks break. Then in my turn 5, I'm going to charge the Plague Monks with my Corsairs. They'll flee off the board. And I'm going to debuff the assassin pretty heavily, so I don't do anything else, but in my close combat phase, the Cold One Knights are not going to take any wounds, and they'll kill the assassin. And that means that I've got possession of the rulebook. I've got another turn left to drag it back, although it's already barely in my deployment zone, and the Skaven don't have anything on the board except for 1 unit of slaves and 10 gutter runners that are way off in the corner where they can't do anything. So we called the game. It's a Dark Elf victory.